Hey y'all, it's Katie and welcome back to my channel. Today, I just gotta get going because there are so many things that I want to tell y'all about. I think the last update that I gave y'all, other than asking my bridesmaids, was the Q&A that I gave like a week after getting engaged. And since then, I have learned so much. So I wanted to create a video that shows kind of what you need to do ASAP after getting engaged. If you're interested in this wedding content and learning more about the wedding planning process, feel free to like, subscribe, comment your questions. I am here for y'all. There was so much that I didn't want to forget it, so I wrote the whole list out on my phone so I would make sure to hit every point that I've learned so far. So of course, the first thing that you want to do is soak it all in, be happy and engaged, and just have that time together with you and your partner, because that is what is important. Then, once you get into reality, the first thing that I would suggest is talking with your partner about a time frame of when you want your wedding. Not an exact date. I'll talk more about that later. But think more the year, the season. Do you want fall, spring? Because that will start to get you thinking of, oh, our wedding would be this far out from today. If the time that you're planning on getting married is more than a year out, then I would say you have some time to figure this stuff out. If you are around a year to less than a year of when you want to get married, you need to get to booking immediately because things fill up really fast, especially with all the weddings that have been pushed back, or if you're planning on getting married in a popular destination, venue, city. Things are booked out like a year to two in advance. The more time you have, better chance you'll actually get it. The next thing that I would suggest, which is so important, is your budget. I know I talk about budgeting and saving money a lot, but this is probably the most important thing you can do. People always talk about how expensive weddings are, but wow, I did not realize how much more expensive they are than I could have ever imagined. Before we had even looked at any price tags, Josh and I were kind of deciding, oh, this is probably what we would think the average wedding would cost. No, weddings are expensive. Things add up really quickly, so you need to establish how much you are willing to spend on that day and what is realistic for your situation. You may even want to plan your actual date a little farther out in order to save up more money. Also, something that's super important is if you have people helping and contributing to the wedding, I would establish an exact dollar amount that they would be contributing. I know it can be kind of weird to talk about money right when you get engaged. You don't want to make it weird or awkward, but if people are offering to help and that's something that you would feel comfortable accepting, it would be easier in your planning process if you knew the exact amount versus saying they would help with the photographer or something, because the amount that you may be thinking to pay for a photographer may be completely different than what they're thinking. Once you have your complete total max budget set, start researching and seeing what percentages of that budget should go to certain vendors. I've seen a bunch of different things on the internet flexing at how much of a percent you should spend on your venue and food, your dress, etc. So figure out what that would mean for you and set caps for the amount that you would spend on each type of vendor. I would just go ahead and start making a big Excel sheet with all the different things you'll be paying for your wedding. This not only just includes day of stuff, but also any type of gifts, invitations. If you're getting any dresses for your engagement party or bridal shower, include everything that you are spending for your wedding in this Excel sheet. We started off by writing everything out and then doing estimates on how much we think it would cost and try to stay around that number. It's so hard because the wedding industry just plays on your emotions, and it's this one day that you have envisioned and you want it to go perfectly, but you also need to realize that you don't want to go in debt from your wedding. It is one day and it is a celebration of you and your partner getting married. In order to make sure that you splurge on the things that are most important to you and save money on things that may not matter as much, I would highly recommend physically ranking everything that you will be spending money on for your wedding. What are the things that are the most important and that you would be willing to spend more money on? So Is your venue top on your list? How important is your photographer, your DJ, your cake, the type of food you get? If you think that your flower arrangements are more important than your invitations, then put those higher up on your list. That way you can lay out everything that you would want, and you may have to cut some of the things at the bottom of your list that may not be as important. Next is the guest list. So one of the first things that we did was run through every possible person that we think we would want to invite to our wedding in an ideal scenario. And I'm not saying every possible person you know that you could possibly invite, but realistically, if you could have everyone that means something to you at your wedding, who would those people be? You can definitely comb through that list, have several iterations of it. I know some people have a plan A and a plan B list, depending on how many people they can have. But knowing how many people that you're looking at inviting helps you determine the size venue that you need to look at. Also, keep in mind that the more people that you invite, the more you need to pay for food and drinks, and therefore the more money you spend on your wedding. So if you want to invite a lot more people to your wedding, you may need to order less expensive food or not have as many decorations, etc. Next, I would talk with your partner about the type of wedding that y'all are looking at having and the relative location. For example, I would suggest deciding if y'all want a city wedding, if y'all want to be in the country, on a beach, in the mountains. Also, if you have family in different locations, that would factor in whether or not they would need to travel and if there are proper accommodations in those areas. So once you have all of those figured out, then you can start looking for your actual venue. The venue is one of the biggest purchases for your percentage of your budget. Keep in mind that some venues may only allow you to use their preferred vendors, so that's another thing to consider when choosing your venue. It's hard to figure out what you need to prioritize first on your list in your timeline, but you need to book your venue first out of anything else you book, because your venue determines the actual date that you will be getting married, and you really can't book anything else until you know that date. Also, something that I learned the hard way, do not get fixated on the actual physical numbers of the date. I know when I was looking at venues, seeing what their availability is online, I would be like, oh, are those numbers that I would want for the rest of my life? No, when you are trying to pick a place, you are trying to find something that is available for the season that you want, trying to figure out all of those components. The actual date does not matter. Another big thing to consider when choosing your venue, there could actually be two different locations depending on where you have your wedding ceremony, which is the actual I-dos, and then your reception, which is the party after. If you're planning on having your ceremony in a separate place than your reception, like a church or somewhere that is special to y'all, then that's something else you need to coordinate with your reception to map out how far away those places are. I wouldn't recommend having a ceremony site that is like an hour away from your reception. If that's something that you want to do, go for it, but I'm just thinking in terms of making sure that all your guests can find the correct location, get to the next location on time. There can definitely be some confusion, but also people that you're paying by the hour, like your photographer, videographer, if you choose to do that, if they're at your ceremony and your reception, you're still paying for that time while they're traveling between places. So to get the most out of your money, it would be easier if your reception and ceremony venues were close together. Something that was really important for us was to make sure that the ceremony and reception site were in the same area. That way people wouldn't have to travel to and from too many different places. Also, another thing that was really important to us was finding a place that we could have either an outdoor or an indoor ceremony. We keep going back and forth on which one we actually want. We're so glad that the place we picked has both, because if we do choose to have an outdoor ceremony, it's nice for that indoor backup, just in case it's bad weather, it's too hot or cold, etc. Also, if you're looking to save money, something that we learned when looking at venues was you can spend almost half as much on a venue if you choose a Friday or Sunday. Saturdays are obviously the most expensive, but you can get the same venue, same quality, same beauty, and just shift it a day and get it for half the price. Right now, I know it can be really hard to find venues that are giving tours and also make the time to actually go see all these venues, but a lot of them have really good virtual tours that you can go on and really good pictures. So if you're looking for a way to save time and only choose like a few to go in person, I would highly recommend doing the virtual tours. So once you have booked your venue, you have that date solidified, the First vendors you should book are the ones that you will need for the entire day. Thinking about that now, it makes sense, but I didn't realize at first until my friends were telling me you need to book these types of vendors ASAP because they're already booked out for that full day. There are certain things that you can wait for because you don't need people physically there for the whole time, like if you're getting decor delivered or something. But if you need to actually have the people physically there, they are booked out, like I said, a year or two in advance. So booking these following vendors is crucial as soon as you can. The number one vendor that we were looking at is a photographer. So we want to make sure that we found a photographer that fit our style. I like to think that we're very light and chill and casual. So we didn't want to have a photographer that shoots and edits in a style that wasn't complimentary to us as a couple. And it's super important to find a photographer that makes you feel comfortable. So that way they can bring out the real you and your pictures can be genuine. I know something that's really hard if you don't have a good relationship with the person behind the camera, that maybe your pictures may look posed. If that's what you want, go for it. But we wanted something that was a little more relaxed and fun. So that is something we search for when choosing our photographer. I would also suggest whatever photographer you get for your wedding, you also use for any engagement photos or bridal shoots. That way you can warm up to them. Y'all can get to know each other on a more personal level before the big day. Also, knowing who your photographer is from the beginning is super important because they will know based on the time of year, when the sun sets, when's the best time to take certain pictures, so they can kind of create a tentative timeline of what your wedding day would look like based on the amount of hours you have them for on your day. A lot of the photographers that we saw had different sets of hourly packages, and you could pay extra for extra hours, but they would have different timelines of what they would suggest for your wedding to make sure that they capture all those special moments. So yeah, of course, if I had unlimited time with my photographer, I would have them there from morning to night, but that also costs a lot of money. So you can structure your wedding to be a certain amount of hours that you would want photographed to make sure that your photographer can get all the key points of your day. So it really just depends on the amount of money you are willing and able to pay for your photographer and how long you're able to have them for. The exact same thing goes with if you're looking at a videographer. I would suggest whatever your photographer timeline is, the videographer is about the same. Everyone's situation is different, so don't feel like you need to have every single possible vendor. I know going through the first time, I wanted everything and anything, and then you quickly see how much that all adds up. Another big day of is your DJ or your live band, whatever type of music that you want to have. I would highly suggest finding someone that plays the type of music that you would want at your wedding, but also someone that can interact well with your guests. If they can MC your wedding, that's even better. So I didn't even know this was a thing until we started talking to DJs. But the DJ can keep things moving, like over the mic, being like, okay, here are the introductions. Okay, time to cut the cake, which is so cool that they're able to instruct people what's going on instead of everyone coming and asking you and your family. Another one that I wouldn't have even thought about was day of hair and makeup. For hair and makeup, you don't need them there all day, but if there are multiple weddings scheduled on that day, brides are typically going to be getting their hair and makeup done all around the same time. Also, because I have so many bridesmaids, I wanted to make sure that I booked this one out as soon as possible. Trying to find a place that can accommodate that many people was really important, and I didn't want to leave that to the last minute. Also, I would typically recommend getting makeup trials done by the places that you're looking at. I know a lot of hair and makeup places aren't doing trials to limit the amount of exposure during these times, so I ended up just going with a place that a lot of my friends had recommended, and their makeup looked beautiful. So this next one is not a day of vendor, but it was something that just completely took me by surprise, and that is the wedding dress. I actually just found my wedding dress, and I am so excited to share with y'all my experience and navigating that process, but I did not realize how long it takes to get the dress back once you've ordered it. I originally thought that I could just like pop in a few months before the wedding, pick something out, get it altered, and it'd be good. No, that is not how the bridal world works. The dress that I actually chose, I think it's taking like 6 to 7 months just for me to receive it, and then after that it's gonna take 4 to 6 weeks of alterations. It's almost about 9 months by the time that your dress fits you and is ready to go. And not only are you trying to plan it perfectly so you get the dress before your wedding, but if you want to take any bridal pictures before that, you need to factor that in as well. So I'd highly suggest getting your dress at least like a year away from your expected wedding date, if possible. Once you figure out all of those vendors and items, getting them all situated, I would suggest thinking about your save the dates. This one's kind of debatable. It's not something that you need to do right away. Obviously, you need to book the other things that are more important first. But once you have a guesstimate on the people that you would be inviting and the actual date that you're getting married, I would start to plan out your save the dates, especially if people will need to travel in. That way they will have more time to save up and prepare, look for discounts on flights and hotels, and give them plenty of notice. Also, there's a lot more that goes into save the dates than I thought. You have to take pictures if you're gonna put pictures on them. You need to find a save the date that fits in your budget. They're a lot more expensive than I expected too. It's just a piece of paper, but you gotta get a lot of printing done. Finding deals on where to get them printed, gathering up everyone's addresses and information, setting up a way to send out information on where the venue is, how to get there, where to stay. Again, especially if you have people traveling in, providing some sort of map from the airport or how to drive there. Anything that you can do to better enhance their user experience. It may be a lot of work up front, but it will make your guest journey so much smoother. So those are all of my tips on things I would suggest doing right after you get engaged. There's no perfect timeline or specific order you should do these things in, but I found that doing these in this order has helped a lot in the planning process, and I'm hoping this helps make things run smoother going forward. Thank y'all so much for watching to the end of this video, and see y'all soon. Bye!